not gonna lie, what I'm gonna be talking about today is really scary stuff. And I'm just kind of numb to the fact that this is where we are in American history. And I know that no matter what I am going to say about this topic, there are some people who are going to be celebrating it. And that's what also just terrifies me. Because no matter the fact that we have a system of laws in this country that are designed to uphold our freedoms, in this Trump America, it really doesn't matter. And look, if you were to tell me that this is where we were going to be, even under the Trump administration, I would probably laugh at you. But y'all, like, I don't, you know how I don't like overly dramatic things, hyperbolic stuff. What we're talking about today is reality. And this is really scary stuff. For Donald Trump, our current president, to ignore a ruling from the Supreme Court literally is fostering what is called a constitutional crisis. When we have three branches of government, all of them have different responsibilities, they have different duties, and they all check each other. Think of it as, you know, when you're building a fire and you have logs that lean on each other, and all these different logs like lean on each other and hold each other up. The way our government works is we have three different branches of government. They all have different responsibilities, yet they all support each other and hold each other up. They also check each other when one is out of line. We right now have a president that is ignoring the United States Supreme Court. You know what we call that? When we have a president, an executive, a central power that ignores another branch of government, despite the will of that group checking that is called dictatorship. That it's called authoritarianism. You are ignoring literally another branch of government. What that does is it completely throws off the whole structure of our United States Constitution. Now, if you're like, well, so what? You do realize that if the Supreme Court orders whatever it is, and the president ignores it, if it's something that negatively affects you, something that positively affects you, it could mean real consequences. Think if the shoe was on the other foot. Let's say the Supreme Court, or let's say the executive branch under the Biden administration decided to ignore the Supreme Court in the Dobbs decision. You know what's really interesting is, go into that scenario, you would have Republicans freaking out. And look, they would be rightfully freaking out because that would be going against the way that our government is set up. It would bring on a constitutional crisis. If I am not mistaken, one of my friends right before the live said that the only other president in history to ignore a court order or a Supreme Court ruling was Andrew Jackson. I'd have to double check that. But the fact that we have someone that is ignoring the Supreme Court is really, really scary in this moment. Now, I'm going to be doing a case study, a deep dive into one story in particular. You may have heard the name Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Now, this is the case of one individual who is a legal non-resident. Though, while we're going to dive into the specifics of his story and his case, I want you to think about how it connects to you. Does it matter if you are an undocumented person here? Does it matter if you are a legal you have the legal right to be here as a non-citizen. You've been granted protected status. Or if you are a citizen or have birthright citizenship, doesn't matter. The fact that this situation has gone down the way that it is endangers the rights of all of us. So let's talk all about it. Donald Trump is defying the Supreme Court. In the case of the wrongfully removed immigrant Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Trump administration is defying and lying about a Supreme Court order. The Supreme Court, in a 9-0, it was a unanimous decision by a conservative Supreme Court, where 3 of the justices were appointed by Donald Trump himself, ruled that the United States government must facilitate and effectuate, those are the words in the actual ruling itself, the bringing back of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, because under a previous district court, he was granted legal protected status to be in the United States. So let me break it all down for you all. In an order issued on April 11th, a unanimous Supreme Court declared that a district court's decision, quote, properly requires the government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been before he was improperly sent to El Salvador. So let me give you just a timeline of events here. And I actually put it in an easy to understand format here. In 2019, this guy named Kilmar Abrego Garcia, he's a Maryland father of 3, has a wife who's a citizen, has lived here for 14 years, was accused of being part of the gang MS-13 by Maryland police. Now, after further investigation into the matter, it was the Maryland police, after they accused him, it was after hearing the testimony of his family, close friends, everyone, the immigration court said there is no evidence to suggest this, and the testimony actually proves that he should be granted protected status. He should be granted withholding from removal status, which means that he can't be deported, even though he's a non-citizen, but he's here legally. So he has been granted that protection by the district court. This thereby shielded Garcia from deportation after hearing out his testimony. So, how also if he were to return to El Salvador, he pointed out that his life would be in danger, it'd be in jeopardy, and that he could be unalived. So in 2019, he was accused of being a part of this gang. There was no evidence to show that accusation was right or correct at all. An immigration judge heard out the case, heard out the testimony in a district court, and said, we're going to grant you we're going to grant you withholding from removal status, meaning that you are here, you are protected, you are not a legal resident, but you have been shielded from deportation. So, follow me so far? Now, despite having this legal protection, now he's not here legally as a citizen, but he's been given some protection to not be deported in the United States, per the district court judge, and having a green card, Garcia was illegally arrested and detained by ICE and ultimately deported on March 15th. So you're like, well, wait, what? Even though a district court granted him protection from deportation, he was rounded up and deported anyway. You're like, well, wait, how is that possible? Oh, we'll get there. On Friday, April 4th, the U.S. District Court of Maryland said the government needed to facilitate and effectuate the return of Garcia back to the United States. You're like, this guy was given some protection not to be deported. per this district court ruling. Then they took the petitioners, which were the government, they took the proper steps to go through, and they put it up to, they said, oh, you know, he was deported by a mistake. It was an administrative error. He shouldn't have been deported. Yeah, he was given some protection, but, you know, we deported him by mistake. Trump administration says, oopsies, my bad, tee-hee-hee. The district, wait, hold on. Yeah. Then the district court was then upheld by the United States Court of Appeals. So you have different layers. You have the district courts, the Court of Appeals, the Supreme Court. The Court of Appeals upholds the previous district court's ruling saying, yeah, you need to bring this guy back. Then it goes to the Supreme Court, which recently just ruled that, yeah, you need to facilitate and effectuate the return of this guy. He was given some protection to be here as a legal non-resident. Which gets us to present day. So what's really interesting is this guy was accused by police of doing a crime that he did not commit. He did not have any criminal history, anything. Then his case is heard before a district court. The district court says, yeah, there's no evidence to show that you've done this bad thing. Hearing out your testimony, we are going to protect you from this deportation. We are going to facilitate the process in which you become a citizen. We're going to give you a green card. We're going to go through the proper steps to make sure this happens. Then the Trump administration decides to round him up and deport him, despite that district court providing that protection. Then the Trump administration goes, oh, oopsies, tee-hee-hee, my bad. And it went through the proper channels of district court, Court of Appeals, Supreme Court, which is super majority conservative, saying, yeah, you need to effectuate this order. You need to facilitate it and bring this guy back. Now, pause. The way our Constitution is set up is the president must abide by Supreme Court rulings. That's how the whole system works. You have different branches of government, the legislative, the executive, and the judicial. They all have different responsibilities and powers. They all also check each other like three friends in a friend group. You have three friends, each of you has a different specialty. You all check each other, but you have different responsibilities. That's how our government works. The executive branch right now is just ignoring. You're like, we don't like what you're saying, so we're just going to ignore it. That ignoring a Supreme Court order is literally what is going to bring about a constitutional crisis. And what I mean by that is you're literally going against the way the Constitution was written, which means that we are going to be in government upheaval because of the actions of Donald Trump. I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm just simply pointing it out. If this was Biden, put the shoe on the other foot. Let's say that Biden decided to ignore the Dobbs decision. Remember the decision that stripped women of their reproductive rights? Well, if Biden were to have ignored that Supreme Court order, that would have brought on a constitutional crisis. Now, I'm not here to weigh in on that. I'm just pointing it out. If a president ignores a Supreme Court decision, then they bring about a constitutional crisis. And if the shoe was on the other foot, and this was a case that was done by a Democrat, right-wingers be losing their minds. They'd be losing their minds. And look, rightfully so, because it's crazy. All of this to point out, this case with Abrego Garcia, what this effectively means for you, and I'm born here in North Carolina, so I'm a United States citizen, all of that. What this means for you is if you are a citizen or legal non-resident, like Abrego Garcia, he was a legal non-resident. He was granted some protection from the district court, upheld by the U.S. Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court, despite being deported anyway by the Trump administration, who's ignoring this whole thing, saying, oh, it was an administrative error, tee-hee-hee, but we're not going to bring him back. This all means that you can be a citizen or legal non-resident, and if you're accused of a crime that you didn't commit, accused of being affiliated with a dangerous group, even though the prosecutor has no evidence that you are part of that group, you receive legal protection for a district court, you receive legal protection through the Court of Appeals, you receive protection from the Supreme Court, you can still be deported by ICE in this administration, bypassing even constitutionally protected due process. So what this means is, if the Trump administration acts quicker than our legal system, and you're deported on accident, even though you have protection by the government, it means that, oh, well, tough luck. Now, you're like, wait, what? U.S. citizens? Yes. Yes. Because Donald Trump literally yesterday said that he is considering going after, quote, homegrowns next. He is saying homegrown criminals. In the case of Abrego Garcia, he was accused. There was never any evidence to show that he was a part of whatever gang. He was accused of something he did not do. There was brought forward in a trial saying, all right, let's look at the evidence. There is no evidence to show this accusation holds up. We're going to grant you protected status. Even though he got protected status, heard it out in a court, went through the proper channels, he was still deported. What does this mean? It means that you, me, anyone that Trump deems as accuses of something, of a dangerous act or threat, even if you go through the proper channels of getting legal recourse through due process, what that means is that you can still be deported, and they won't try to get you back. You're hearing me right. What this means is that for everyone in here who is a citizen, if you're accused of something, you go through the proper channels to protect and defend yourself from that accusation, and the government still doesn't like you. The Trump administration doesn't like you. Trump doesn't personally like you. You might still be deported to an El Salvadorian prison. And even though they say, oh, well, you had protected, you were protected from it. Ooh, well, you're already there, so oops, bye. Haha, too bad. Tough luck. That's what's happening. It's really scary. Now, of course, there are going to be some loudmouth trolls that are in the chat here because y'all are brainwashed and you can't just look at this for what it is. So let me read out this quote that really, really resonates with me in this moment. This is from someone that was a part of the Holocaust. First, they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists. I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. Martin Niemöller. Let me also just point out here that this also really just kind of gets to me. Hold on just a second. Where is it? It didn't start with gas chambers. It started with one party controlling the media, like what Donald Trump is doing with right-wing media. One party controlling the message. One party deciding what is truth. One party censoring speech and controlling the opposition. One party dividing citizens into us versus them and calling their supporters to harass them. It started when good people turned a blind eye and let it happen. The reason why I'm saying this, and sorry, I need some air. There's a loud truck next to me. Is because there are all of the, and I'm saying this as someone who grew up in a very Christian conservative Southern home. I know that this moment is scary to admit that this is happening. It's scary to admit that, like, this is where we're heading. I know what it's like to be brainwashed. I was. No one ever gave me the tools to think critically for myself. No one ever gave me the empowerment to go out and make my own decisions, to go and look and think critically for my own self, my own agency. What's just so scary about this moment is that if you don't agree with the MAGA cult, then you could possibly be deported. That's literally what this is turning into. It's what it's turning into. If you do not agree, or if you call out, point out the hypocrisy, hold power accountable, then they don't like you, you can get deported. This is really, really scary stuff. This is this kind of stuff that happens under dictators. When Joe Biden was president, when Obama was president, did he ever try to deport anyone who was against him? Did he ever threaten people who spoke out against him using their First Amendment rights? No, not at all. This is really dangerous because this is a whole new level of democracy erosion. And I don't like to be doom and gloom, or even, like, I'm not being dramatic here when I'm just simply pointing this out. Sorry, let me turn on the air in my car. Whew. I would open the door, but there's a loud truck next to me. All of this being said, this specific moment with Kilmer Abrego Garcia it's kind of a test for where our country is possibly going to go. By the way, just going to throw it out there. If you're attempting to get my attention in the chat, literally don't. I have the chat to the point where I don't see it. So, moderators, if there is something that needs my attention or needs me to see, then just text me in our group chat and I will see it come down as a notification. That being said, for anyone who's attempting to try and laugh at this moment, no one is safe from this. American citizens are not safe in their own country because of Donald Trump. I'm not joking. If you, as an American citizen, are accused of a crime, under the existing statutes of this case, if you're accused of a crime, granted even protection by the district court, and you are somehow still accused and rounded up because of ICE by the Trump administration and deported, even though you have that protection, what that then shows is, okay, even though they did that, oh, tee-hee, we're not going to reverse it because boo-hoo. This is dangerous stuff. Have you ever been accused of something that you didn't do? I have. Not within a legal framework or a court or anything like that. You know when people accuse you of doing something and you didn't do it? And you're trying to say yeah, no, I didn't do it. And you're trying to provide proof and all that stuff. And you know you didn't do it. You are very passionate about it. Under this framework, you can be accused of something by the Trump administration that you didn't do. And because of that hatred, because of that dislike, you can be deported, even if you're a U.S. citizen. I'm not joking. This is what this court, that is what this case is allowing. And that's exactly what Justices Sonia Sotomayor, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and Elena Kagan were talking about in the court ruling. They offered like a concurrent opinion, I think is what it's called. So let me break down the specifics again of this situation just to put it in context here. Donald Trump is literally defying or ignoring the Supreme Court. He's ignoring it. If a president ignores the Supreme Court, what it does is it brings about a constitutional crisis, which then means that our whole government is in like absolute upheaval because of everything. Also, before I give you a summary, again, if this is your first time in here, we have a whole bunch of new people in here perhaps. My name is Scott. I am a political news journalist. I am a founder of Critical Media. Independent media is not independent media these days. People are paid to say and do things. They're not independent. The reason I say critical is because I'm critical of everyone. People in my own party, people not in my own party. I give criticism where criticism is warranted and credit where credit is due. That's what I do, okay? You can disagree with my opinions or my analysis. That's fine. What's not up for debate are the objective facts, data, science, statistics, court rulings, the words in which actions have been done. That was a funny Kamala Harris moment, a little bit of a word salad there, but you know what I mean. Love Kamala Harris personally. That all being said, well, most parts. I don't like her stance on Gaza. I was like, yeah, no girl, you need to not do that. Point is, if this is your first time here and you're enjoying the live, then please smash that subscribe button, support my channel. I'm going to be dropping another video today, which is another FAFO video, and it's really, really interesting because this one has a bit of a twist. So make sure to check that out once I post it. So with everything happening with Kilmer, Abrego Garcia, let me summarize it for you. Donald Trump is ignoring the Supreme Court. That is a big deal because if you have one branch of government ignore another branch of government, basically what that does is it supersedes, ignores, and completely violates the Constitution, which then throws our entire government into a whole tizzy because you're ignoring the way the government is set up. Doing that leads to what is a constitutional crisis. And that's bad because then government is like, what? And again, I said this earlier, but put the shoe on the other foot. In this case, Donald Trump is ignoring the Supreme Court when it comes to this decision around facilitating and effectuating, those are the legal terms, the bringing back of this one guy who was granted some protected status from deportation, who ended up being deported anyway. Put the shoe on the other foot. If Joe Biden were to have ignored the Dobbs decision was the thing that took away reproductive rights when people who have the capacity for pregnancy to have autonomy over their bodies. It was one of those, quote, pro-life decisions that said they took abortion back to the states to effectively ban it. If Joe Biden were to have ignored that Supreme Court ruling, it would have brought on a constitutional crisis. Because anytime a president ignores a Supreme Court ruling, it will bring about that. Right-wingers would literally SHIT a brick if that were to have been the case. And now look, I personally am all about women and people with the capacity for pregnancy. Yes, that includes non-binary and trans folks, the way I say that deliberately, to have autonomy over their bodies. I personally don't have that kind of experience or that kind of equipment. What I'm saying is if Joe Biden were to have ignored that ruling, it would have brought about a constitutional crisis. And that would have been bad. Donald Trump ignoring a Supreme Court decision he doesn't like brings about a constitutional crisis. The way that we have government set up is to have these laws so that we live in a society that is based on freedoms, but also a structure that makes sense for everyone. The way that, and I've used this analogy a lot, the way that Donald Trump likes to do politics is it's like playing Monopoly with a 4-year-old. You heard me right, 4-year-old. It's very heads I win, tails you lose style politics. When you're trying to play Monopoly with a 4-year-old and you go around, you land on their hotels, and they make you pay twice as much. You don't pay twice as much, they will just whine, they'll cry, they'll moan, they'll do everything. They'll start destroying stuff. And you're like, fine, stop. I'll pay you twice as much. They basically whine their way into getting what they want. And then they land on your hotels and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And they just whine. So you say, fine, you only have to pay half. It's trying to play Monopoly with a 4-year-old where they change the rules whenever it benefits them. That is what Donald Trump does. His art of the deal is whining until he gets what he wants. His art of the deal is making an absolute ruckus and being obnoxious about it until he gets what he wants. And you could say, oh, well, that's kind of successful because he's a billionaire that was given so many different opportunities. And he also has a whole cult of people behind him that will do whatever he needs. It's the perfect breeding ground for authoritarianism. That all being said, looking at this case here, Donald Trump is just ignoring the Supreme Court because it's beneficial for him. He doesn't like the ruling, so he's just going to ignore it. Who cares if that dismantles our constitutional republic? Who cares about that? So this case, now you're going to be like, well, why are you saying that this is serious for every single American citizen? Or pause. Let me take a sip of water before I can English more effectively. Hold on. This case is about someone who is a legal non-resident. They are not a citizen of the United States. I'm going to make that clear. They have legal protection to be here as a non-citizen. Now, this case also affects United States born and raised citizens, because this sets a dangerous precedent, a dangerous example going forward about how the court interacts with people accused of crimes. So, Donald Trump is defying the Supreme Court, just ignoring them, ignoring the 9-0 unanimous ruling. Remember, the Supreme Court is a supermajority conservative court, 6-3. Let me see if I can name all of the justices real quick. Sometimes I can do that. You have the Democratic liberal justices, Elena Kagan, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, and Sonia Sotomayor. And you have the 6 conservative ones, Alito, Thomas, Gorsuch, Roberts, Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett. My constitutional law professor would be proud of me. Thanks, Dr. Key. She was really, really intimidating. Anyway, that all being said, let's do a quick review of this. In an order issued on April 11th, a unanimous Supreme Court decision upheld a district court. So district courts are the bottom courts. Then you have the Court of Appeals. Then you have the Supreme Court. Think of it as a pyramid. The Supreme Court is up here. You have multiple different circuits, Court of Appeals. Then you have all these different district courts underneath it. All of them underneath it. And then you have Court of Appeals. Then you have Supreme Court. The Supreme Court upheld a district court ruling saying that, yes, this guy, Abrego Garcia, who was granted he was granted status to be here, protection to be here, you have to facilitate the return of him and effectuate the return of him from El Salvador, where he was deported. Now, that's pretty straightforward. The government must abide by the district court's, order to return Abrego from the custody in the El Salvador prison that he is currently in. I'll get to how this affects everyone, U.S. citizens, here in a second. But let me actually show you the ruling itself. So if you want to go and read a Supreme Court ruling, this one is actually pretty easy to read. Sometimes they are pages and pages long, and they use all this legalese, is what I call it, legal language that's like, makes your eyes like slide into the back of your head and go down your spine. This one's actually fairly easy to understand. So when looking at it, this is the first page here. The United States acknowledges that Abrego Garcia was subject to a withholding order which forbid his removal to El Salvador, and thereby the removal where he was deported was illegal. Basically, they're saying that this guy was deported wrongfully and illegally, and that this was a result of an administrative error on the part of the Trump administration, which they admitted to in court. The United States alleges, however, that Abrego Garcia, was a member of this gang. Even though there was no evidence to show that that was the case, he was accused, and they didn't bring any evidence, and instead his testimony from him, his family, his friends, was enough that a district court judge said, no, if you were to return to El Salvador, your life could be in danger because of the information you provided, so we're going to grant you some protection to stay here and go through the process to become a citizen of the United States. He was also never charged. He never had a criminal history either. So this is going through the background of the case here. Abrego Garcia, on Friday, April 4th, the United States District Court of Maryland, they put in an order saying, yeah, you need to return this guy to the United States. Even though he had been given this protected status, he was rounded up by ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and deported anyway. He was deported anyway, despite having legal protection to be here as a non-resident who had his green card. So you can be accused of a crime, and even though you win in court, you get that protected status, you can still be deported because the Trump administration just ignores that and says, oopsies, our bad, administrative error. And now speed forward to today, they're saying, well, we don't want to go through the actions to bring him back because he was a member of a gang. There was no evidence to show that. Yet they're just still going along with that. They're ignoring things that they don't like. They're going against the rulings, the checks and balances, the separation of powers, the way that our government is structured. Take out the whole notion of this case. The fact that it's about immigration. When one branch of government ignores another branch of government, when they're attempting to check one another, that leads to the erosion of how our system works. And it leads to people like Donald Trump, an authoritarian, to swoop in and do whatever he wants despite the rule of law, which then can go against people's personal freedoms, people's personal unalienable rights that are bestowed and vested to them as by their creator. Literally, those are the words from our Constitution. As flawed as the founding of our country was, that line I think is pretty good. That all being said, the United States, even though this guy had protection to be here, he was granted withholding from removal, which means that he was not going to be able to be deported, was still deported anyway by the Trump administration. And this district court says, yeah, you need to bring him back. You need to bring him back. This goes to the Court of Appeals. The Court of Appeals is like, yep, yeah, you need to bring him back. Then it goes up to the Supreme Court and they say, yeah, you need to bring him back. And the Trump administration is ignoring it. They're ignoring it. Pause. Moderators, is there anything that I need to see in the chat here? Or is it just full of really, really obnoxious people? If you're enjoying the live stream, please make sure to send some likes. I see people sending likes. It means a lot. I hope that my the way that I'm breaking all of this down is really helpful. The reason why this applies to you and me is pretty simple. It's pretty simple here. Basically, let me, and I'm gonna skip ahead. Actually, I'm gonna skip ahead. Just as a little background here. Again, in 2019, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Maryland father of 3, was accused of being a part of this MS-13 gang by Maryland police. An accusation, not evidence, an accusation. Now, after being heard out in court into this matter, there was no evidence to support the accusation, and instead there was testimony by Garcia, his family and friends, where the judge was like, yeah, if you were to return to El Salvador, you could be in serious trouble where your life would be in danger. So we are going to grant you withholding from removal status, which means you can be here with protection. You can be here as a legal non-resident and be protected because your life would be in danger if you return. And so what this basically did was it gave him some protection. Then, despite having this protection, the district court, Garcia was illegally arrested and rounded up and detained by ICE and deported on March 15th. Think of it if it were you. If you went through, you were accused by the police of doing something, and you had protection from that thing, and you were then still arrested for it. Think of it like this. If you were accused of stealing something, and the judge then said, yeah, no, actually, evidence, there's no evidence to show that you actually did it. There's testimony saying, and people, credible witnesses and everything saying that this didn't happen. And the court finds that you are innocent. And the police come busting through the next day and still arrest you anyway. That's what this is. You've been granted legal protection, not to be a citizen, but legal protection not to be deported, and you're still arrested. Think of what that means. Again, if you are accused of arson, if you're accused of arson on your neighbor's house, you go to trial, or someone accuses you of arson of your neighbor's house. Then you go to trial, you show that, hey, there's no evidence to show that this is true. It was just an accusation. The court then says, yeah, there's no evidence to show that this is the case. Then 2 days later, the police come and arrest you for that anyway, ignoring that protection. That's what this is. That's what this case sets precedent for. Doesn't matter if you are an undocumented immigrant. Doesn't matter if you are a legal non-citizen, like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, or if you are a U.S. citizen. Think of the example that this sets going forward. Doesn't matter Republican, Democrat. Doesn't matter black, white. Doesn't matter if you are gay, straight. Doesn't matter if you like pineapple and pizza or not, or if you like Star Wars or not. My point is, it's a dangerous precedent going forward. What we are doing is we are flirting with the opportunity for authoritarians to swoop in and do whatever they want because of the erosion of the rule of law that we have set up. So, on April 4th, the U.S. District Court was like, yeah, you deported him anyway. That's wrong. You need to facilitate and effectuate the return of Garcia back to the United States. The Trump administration's like, oh, geez, oh my, we made a mistake. Our bad. This was an administrative error. This is an administrative error. They're like, okay, still got to return him though. And Trump administration's like, no, we're not going to do that. So they're just going through and being like, yeah, we don't want to do that. We're just not. The district court, then it went to the U.S. Court of Appeals. The U.S. Court of Appeals says, yeah, executive branch, you need to do this. Then they ignore this Court of Appeals. The Supreme Court gets involved and says, yeah, Trump, you really need to bring this guy back. Now pause. What they're saying is you need to bring this guy back and he needs to go through the process because he was going through a green card process, all of that. He could have still been deported under the other rules. So what this is doing is they basically, they did this, they acted super hasty and avoided accountability from the courts. He could have still been brought back under these rules and then deported anyway, and it would have been, I think it would have been wrong, but it would have been legal and it would have gone through the proper channels. My point is the Supreme Court makes this ruling, you need to return Garcia, and the Trump administration is still ignoring it. Just ignores it. So even if you have protection, you can still be deported. That's scary. Present day, Trump ignores the Supreme Court despite being constitutionally required to uphold this as a court order. Yeah, thank you, Ilisa. The fact that, and just as a little pause here, for everyone who is attempting to get my attention here in the chat with whatever crap you're trying to put out there, there are two rules a part of my live streams. Number one, you can't spew misinformation, objectively wrong information. Your opinion is not facts. My opinion is not a fact. Facts are facts. Data, science, statistics, court hearings, all of that. Objective, measurable stuff. Those are facts. Opinions are analyses, viewpoints, interpretations of those facts. If you are spewing objectively wrong information, you will be muted. Sorry, there is a YouTube policy that misinformation is dangerous and must be removed. Period. Now, the other rule, number two, is if you spew any sort of hate, prejudice, or homophobia, transphobia, harassment, bullying, anything like that, yes, you will be removed and blocked. You will be muted, removed, blocked. Look, you can say, oh, well, what about my First Amendment rights? You have the First Amendment rights to say it. Sure. Though, think about what you're using your First Amendment for. You're using your First Amendment to spew hate, fear, anger, division. What's the point of using a First Amendment if you're going to use it to harm others? Sure, you can use it, but guess what? If you yell fire in a crowded theater and it leads people to being trampled to death, you are held accountable for your actions that bring that about. Cool? So, if you're using your First Amendment rights to spew hate and prejudice, and you're doing it on my personal platform, and this is my space, I'm going to say, yeah, we don't want that. So you will be muted and removed. Tough. If you were to host a live stream and I were to do those awful things, wouldn't you probably do the same? Wouldn't you do the same? My point is, if you use your First Amendment rights to spew hate and anger and prejudice, then sorry, you're going to be removed. No one needs that. Now, if you have a different opinion or analysis on a topic, and it's rooted in just looking at it without any sort of like anger or hate or anything like that, but we happen to disagree, then that's fine. That's fine. You can have a disagreement of opinion or viewpoint on something. There's no getting around that. But if you're using fear and anger and you're using prejudice as your shield, then first off, you need to stop, because that's really, really, really immoral and gross. And secondly, maybe you should do some inward introspection into why is it that a lot of your beliefs are founded upon that anger and hate instead of empathy and love and critical thinking. Look, to everyone who seeks to make me their enemy, I'm not your enemy, dude. I'm not your enemy. I'm your fellow neighbor. I'm your fellow citizen. I'm your fellow local you know, cute gay guy in your neighborhood, okay? I'm not your enemy. I'm not your opposition. We need to stop with this, like, you versus me. That's not the point. The reason I do these live streams is to hold powerful people accountable. That all being said, if you can't abide by those rules, sorry, then you are not going to be in the space. And if you want to whine about it, sure, you can whine about it, but it's not going to get you anywhere. Get it? Got it? Good. Perfect. Anyway, this sets forward a really, really dangerous precedent. Because even if you get legal protected status from the Supreme Court, and you're already deported, the executive branch is just going to ignore it anyway. Now, you're like, well, how does this relate to me? How does this relate to me? If you are a citizen, legal non-resident, and you're accused of a crime, or being affiliated with a dangerous group, or you're being accused of being affiliated with a dangerous group, even though the people bringing the case, the prosecutor, have no evidence, even though you receive status or protection from a district court, from a court of appeals, from the Supreme Court, it means that you can still be arrested, deported, whatever, by this administration. They ignore the courts. Trump ignores the courts. That's dangerous. That is dangerous for any executive to ignore the courts. Doesn't matter what it is. If Biden were to ignore the courts when they made a ruling that he didn't like, that would be just as bad when it comes to the erosion of our democracy. But see, the thing is, for right-wingers, you decide to opportunistically say, oh, well, ignoring the courts is good when it favors my guy, but when it's your guy, no, we don't like it. So it's fair for you to change the rules when it benefits you, but it's not fair for me to change the rules when it benefits me. No one should be changing the rules in the first place. The point of all of this is that unfortunately, no one is safe. If you speak out against this administration, they accuse you of something that you didn't do. You receive legal status. They go through with ICE and round you up anyway and arrest you illegally and deport you. They might say, oopsies, didn't mean to do that. And they don't do anything to bring you back, even though it was wrong, even though there was an error. That's scary. That's scary. So I also just want to point out that around 90% of the people that have been deported to El Salvador to lie in this prison don't have a criminal record. They're just being accused of doing bad things. They're like, because they are Hispanic or Hispanic looking, they're just being accused of whatever and deported because of that accusation. Now, you might say, oh, well, I'm not Hispanic, this doesn't affect me. But have you ever been accused of something you didn't do, and then you were punished for that thing? Doesn't it feel awful? No, Biden did not ignore the Supreme Court several times. He didn't. He didn't ignore the Supreme Court whatsoever. What I'm saying is that if he were to have, that would have been bad. It would have brought on a constitutional crisis. Just like this. President Biden did not ignore the Supreme Court. You know what's interesting? And I'm going to point that out. What you're experiencing is something called cognitive dissonance. As soon as I point out that Trump is actually doing the thing that you, in the back of your mind, you're like, yeah, that's bad. You say, oh, well, your guy must have done it. Your guy must have done it. And you point fingers. The reason you do that is because you're attempting to get around the inconvenient information that I'm providing. You say, oh, well, he must have done it. No, he did not do that. Biden did a lot of not great things, in my opinion, but he did not do that. What you're experiencing is cognitive dissonance. In order to run away from the accountability of what your actions supporting a guy that did exactly what you actually know to be condemnable, you decide to point fingers and do, what about this? What about this? And you're like, well, Scott, how do you know that? Because I am a former MAGA. I was brainwashed into the cult. Yes, I was. I was raised watching Fox News and Sean Hannity. I said and did my fair share of things that were homophobic and transphobic and racist. Yes, I was raised that way. I was. And it wasn't until I fully went to college and realized how wrong I was about things, how misinformed I was about things, and people gave me the tools to think critically for myself, not to tell me what to think, but teach me how to think critically. And then I'm like, oh wow, wait, hold on. A lot of the things that I was told were just prejudice? Interesting. The reason I bring all of that up, whenever I point that out, they're always trying to point the other direction and make it like both sides are equally bad. It's a knee-jerk reaction to avoid accountability and atonement for when your actions support that bad thing. You try to water it down to then justify how your bad actions in the past weren't actually as bad. So, anyway. All that being said, Donald Trump literally said this in the Oval Office yesterday, that, or maybe not in the Oval Office, but shortly after meeting with Bukele, I think is it how you say his name, the president of El Salvador. He said, quote, "Homegrowns are next." You heard me right. Donald Trump said homegrowns are next. He means homegrown criminals. Now you're like, well, what's so wrong with that? Remember how I just talked about how the Trump administration or police or anyone can accuse you of a crime, even if you get protected status by a district court, court of appeals, Supreme Court, they might go through and arrest you anyway and deport you anyway. And after an accusation, even though it's not founded in any evidence, if you're deported right away anyway, they're just going to go through and deport you, and they're just not going to try to bring you back. Think of it. Put the shoe on the other foot. Let's say that Biden was doing exactly what Trump is doing right now. Let's say that Kamala Harris was doing exactly what Trump is doing right now. And Kamala Harris decides to ignore the Supreme Court in the pursuit of trying to bring this person back. That would bring about a constitutional crisis. It's bad. Now, maybe because there are some people who are MAGA, you like to change the rules when it benefits you, because you don't want to live in a country that is fair and free for everyone. You don't like the fact that you have to play by the rules in which our country was founded. You think that you are superior than other people so that you can change the rules when it benefits you. But that's not how this country is set up. We don't do that kind of thing. Sorry. Donald Trump floats that homegrowns are next. You heard me right. He literally said, homegrown criminals are next. You got to build about 5 more places. He said that to Bukele, the president of El Salvador. He said, yeah, we got space. What's also just really dangerous, and I'm going to have to go here in a minute because I need a break. Immigration and Customs Enforcement chief dude, Tom Homan, literally said that there needs to be a big business around deportations. Make it like Amazon style. That's scary. He literally... I would not be surprised if the Trump administration is secretly trying to make money off of locking people up with the prison industrial complex. Looking at the way that this is, looking at the way that all of this is, it's really, really scary to see this. They're trying to make a business off of putting people in prisons. Let me also just point another thing out here. And I showed this earlier. It didn't start with gas chambers or concentration camps. It started with what we're seeing right now. The reason why things like the Holocaust, the reason why those kinds of things happen is because media figures tell you to deny reality when you are seeing it. Oh, the sky isn't blue. You're not seeing that. If there are powerful forces that constantly lie and lie and lie and lie and lie and lie and lie to you, eventually you might just be like, fine, whatever. That's what the right-wing media is attempting to do. That's what they're attempting to do. They just like to spew a whole bunch of misinformation. It didn't start with concentration camps or gas chambers. It started with one party controlling the media, one party controlling the message, one party deciding what is truth, one party censoring speech and controlling the opposition, one party dividing citizens into us versus them. Oh geez, I wonder what that sounds like. Instead of it being we as Americans, it's always the woke transgender people. It's always the immigrants that are, quote, poisoning the blood of this country. Oh, thanks, Bucka Buddha. I appreciate that. Also, just as a quick little thing, actually, I'll get to that in a second. But it's dangerous what's happening. It's really dangerous. Make sure that there are people who are trying to suppress their knee-jerk reaction when they see stuff that is negative stuff happening. Be like, oh, that's not actually that. It's not actually that. Don't suppress at all the negative stuff that is happening in your life. Don't suppress the knee-jerk reaction you have when you see something that is bone-chilling, because that is a sign. It's a sign of the possible downfall of our democracy. And we need to act upon it. We can't ignore it. We can't run away from it. We have to fight it. So, I know that's a lot to handle and take in. I need a break. Though, I also do want to just ask here. Yeah, I know, right? John Doe. It's so ironic. So ironic, because they're literally trying to foster that. They're trying to foster it. So, this is your moment now. Before I end the stream, please make sure to like the stream before I end it. I love all of you. I've thought about running for Congress, DLive X. I very, very strongly have considered it. If my current representative steps down, I would throw my hat in the ring. Though, I also just might decide to primary anyway. But that's eventually I want to do that. But I appreciate every single one of you. Even if you don't like me, if you want to support my channel, that means the world. I just opened up memberships. I don't know if you all are able to go through and become a member of the channel yet. I opened all of that up. So also, do you all have the ability to send super chats in here? Joanna Tech, love you. Ellie, love you. Ginger Monster, Kate, love you all. Is there the ability for you all to send super chats in here? I know, right, Caesar? Wouldn't that be interesting? When do I stream next? I stream every single morning. I do every single morning. I don't see a super chat option. Okay. Well, then I gotta look into that. I just got approved for membership here on YouTube, so I don't know why it's not providing the super chat option. Maybe I need to figure that out. My moderators, y'all do an incredible job. I know that today's live stream was a lot. Easy on the soy kid. Easy on that profile picture, bucko. Don't make me your enemy. I'm your friend. So, I appreciate every single one of you. You all are awesome, even if you don't like me, okay? I know it's easy to want to feel defeated about this current moment, but I'll leave with this. The people who faced injustice throughout history that we look up to were the folks that stood up to resist it the most. Ah! Wait, someone gifted 1 membership. Oh my goodness. Bakabuda. Wait, let's be friends. How do I subscribe to your channel as well? Hold on. Put user in time. No, not timeout. Okay. Oh my gosh, I think that's my first membership. Oh! Okay, Bakabuda, I'm gonna personally reach out to you. Let's be friends. So, wow. That's my first one. I feel so accomplished. We're working on it. So I need to take a break. Shout out to my amazing moderators in here. We could not do this live stream without my mods because, and let me tell you, my moderators do so much work that I don't even think I'm able to comprehend. I don't think I'm able to even comprehend it because like they're maintaining the space and they just see all of this crap day in and day out. Those people are democracy fighters. So the biggest shout out to, wait, I'm the first one? I'm the first gifted one. Oh, wait, Cantisa. Oh my goodness, thank you. Oh, did they give it to you? Oh, that's so cool. Wow. Wow. Oh, I see. Was gifted a membership by Buddha Bonsai. Oh, that's so cool. Anyway, I appreciate all of you in here. Y'all are awesome. Anyway, I'm going to skedaddle. I need to take a break here. I'm going to be uploading some more content later to my channel, so definitely go and check that out. My moderators are some of the best people that I've ever met and do awesome work. Cherie, I love you. You're incredible. Elisa, what's to say? You're literally the coolest. Ellie, love you, Ellie. Ellie is one of my rocks. I love you. Kate, such a good friend of mine. Always so fun to talk to. Love you. Akicha, hugs my friend all the way on the other side of the other side of the country. Love you. I don't think Jenny is in here. Love you, Jenny. Joanna Tech, my friend from across the pond. I love all of you. Did I miss anyone? I hope I didn't miss anyone. And also my new friends in here. Y'all are awesome. So anyway, just remember that you are beautiful. You are loved. You are valid. You are strong. And you are fierce. Don't let anyone or anything ever dim your shine. I love all of you so much.